Hi everyone, welcome to our not live video. We are Alyx Veldal, Certified Financial Planning Professional, and Jen Patterson, our money coach, and we are from Iron and Pearl Financial. Today we're going to talk about cash flow and what you can do with some extra money. So Jen, here we are in like month 682 of the pandemic, and I feel like things are getting a little bit better. How are you feeling?
I totally agree. I think that panic mode is behind us.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like there's this false sense of comfort because we're definitely not out of the woods, right? Like
Totally.
things are still very precarious and a lot could go wrong and we don't know what that is. So, I feel like we're in almost a more challenging situation than we were previously, because we're now at a place where, things could go sideways again. And those of us who maybe had some nest eggs or some cushion, if our income disappeared, those are gone. And so, it can be it could be a really interesting winter for a lot of people. And I say interesting with, a lot of, a lot of baggage attached to it.
Interesting. Totally. Yeah, we're definitely still in the health crisis and an economic crisis. And you're totally right. People who were able to survive for the past 4 or 5 months because they had, that emergency fund or a little bit of cushion, or maybe their jobs were secure. Going forward, we may not see the same sort of job security, and most people have probably burned through their emergency fund. When we tell people to have 3 to 6 months expenses saved, and then we're like 5 months into possible job losses, and everything is still, like you said, exactly how it is. So what have you seen from like talking to people like friends and family and clients, and just like the generalness on the interwebs? What are you seeing in terms of people's spending, saving, cash flow habits?
It's a really unique time, and I'm speaking from personal experience and as well from just the nature of the conversations that I've been having lately. And that's, in some ways, cash flow is just getting all funneled into like 3 or 4 very specific categories, like groceries. I know for me, a big one is spending on entertaining my children. I'm spending a lot more money buying things that I never would have purchased prior to the pandemic, just to keep my sanity.
Trampoline. Week 1, trampoline. That was our, we were like, well, I guess we're not spending $800 on spring break camp, so we'll spend $400 on this trampoline. There's a lot of justifying going on. Sorry, go back to your point.
No, you're absolutely,
purchases.
Yes, absolutely. So much justification on the purchases. And, so I think that that's been really interesting because, in some ways things are just not being spent on, like, childcare, because it's not available. And for a lot of people, maybe it's even gone up, childcare, because maybe essential workers are having to work longer hours. So their childcare costs have actually gone up.
Or they've hired a nanny.
Or they've had to hire an in-home nanny or an au pair or something along those lines, which can be quite costly. So, I think everybody's in a very different boat, but I think the one commonality over, most individuals will be that it has changed in a very strange way. So I know, personally speaking, like our gas bill went almost to nothing.
Yeah.
And it's dipped. It's a little bit more now than it was in the total lockdown stage. But even still, we were spending far more amount of money on gas previously, and then it just sort of vanished. So, there has been a little bit extra cash because, we're in a situation where my husband's job wasn't affected because he works in tech. And so, going online was a very natural progression for him. So, I feel like we're in those categories of the people who their cash flow didn't change a whole heck of a lot and actually ended up saving us a little bit, rather than having to be out all of that extra dollars because of all of these other factors of job loss and things like that. But, I think that change is just the common denominator here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I've seen a number of people buying new cars, like new off the lot 2020 cars. And I found that really interesting because it seems like one of those like absolutely last luxury purchases that that I would purchase. But then I was like, well, wait a second. The car dealerships are offering some pretty good deals. I'm not trying to sell it here, but if your family has, has job security and incomes haven't been affected, and you're saving all that money, like you said, not paying childcare, not paying for gas, not paying for activities, if you had a big trip planned, and so now all of a sudden you find yourself like, in some cases, $10,000 or $12,000, I guess up from, March until the end of the year. Then if buying a new car or buying a, new to you car was on your goals list, then it does make sense that that's how that came about for some families. Of course,
Absolutely. And what I was going to say also is, particularly those individuals who had things canceled, like big, exciting, events canceled, whether it be a wedding or a trip or, a million other things that have all been put on the chopping block over the last 4 months or 5 months, or I've lost track of time, and time means nothing anymore. But if any of those things occurred in your life, perhaps something like a new vehicle could kind of soften that blow and cushion that landing a little bit and give you, give those individuals something that, feels maybe not a replacement, but at least it's better than nothing. This was on my goals list eventually, so I might as well do it now when I can't do any of these other things, right?
Yeah. Speaking of goals, I found that a lot of people have reached out asking me where they should be saving money. So again, people where they're either saving money because they're not paying daycare costs, for example, or transportation costs, or that trip that they had planned, and they are still receiving their incomes. They're asking me where they should be finally starting to invest in, an RSP or a TFSA, or if they should be investing. Sort of at the mid-March, I found people were asking me if they should be like jumping into the market and taking advantage. And I was like, we don't know where the bottom is. And, we do say like, oh, when things are on sale, buy then, don't sell. But things got pretty bad pretty quickly. And then of course we've seen the recovery. So we are not in, again, that crisis mode that we were a few months ago, but we're definitely not seeing any sense of stability. So what would you suggest for people who are looking at taking that next step for investments, because they do find that they have a little bit of extra cash flow or a little bit of cash flow available each month?
Yeah, such a great question. So I think that there's two parts to this equation. And I think the first part that you mentioned, which was so critical, is if you're in the market and you're watching it just go down and down and down and down and down, I beg of you, please don't sell. Please do not give in to that like temptation of, oh my God, it's dropping. Oh my God, it's dropping. Because yes, recovery could take a long time, but let me tell you that if the markets don't recover, we have bigger problems. If they never recover ever again,
yes,
believe me, there are much bigger problems than your retirement fund. So if you are in that situation, and if we come across another market dip, which very easily could happen, just do yourself a favor, stop watching the balances drop, close your computer lid, and go outside. Talk yourself down from selling. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. The second piece of the puzzle is those who are considering getting into the market because they have these extra cash flow situations. So regardless of the structure that you use, and I'm going to talk about, account structure in a minute, because I do have a little bit of a soapbox rant when it comes to that. But, in terms of just getting into the markets, a great way to do it when you don't know where the bottom is, but you want to take advantage of a dip in the markets, is to do it over time. So take advantage of a strategy that we call dollar cost averaging. And that's just a fancy way of putting in saying that you put in a little bit of money over a period of time. So, you pick a dollar amount that's comfortable for you, whether it's $5 or $100, and you pick a time period. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly. The key is the same time frame each time, so that you are trying to keep yourself out of the decision mode and you let the structure of the strategy take care of making those choices for you. And when the markets are a little bit lower, you'll end up buying more quantity of the investments, and as the markets rise, you will end up buying less quantity. So you're ineffectively buying when things are low, just based on a strategy. So sticking to that calendar is going to be so critical. And you can totally set this up to do an auto, behind the scenes, set it and forget it kind of a situation. Those are amazing because they take human nature out of the equation. And let me tell you, human nature will screw you every time when it comes to investing.
Totally. Yeah.
So that would be, for anyone who's wanting to get into the markets, do that, small amounts over time so that you don't dive in, put your whole nest egg, all of that, $15,000 you've saved in on day one, and then on day two you have a crash, because that's literally what you want to avoid. So, stretch it out over as much time as you want. You can stretch out your investments from now till the time you retire, or if you just have a lump sum that you're wanting to invest, stretch it over a couple of months at least. I would say closer to 6 months or a year, the bigger the dollar amount, depending on what's going to work for you. So that's in terms of your investing strategy. Now, in terms of the structure of your accounts, there in Canada is one of the most underutilized tools that I have ever seen in any sort of financial structure, and that is the tax-free savings account. And let me tell you that the tax-free savings account came about during a savings crisis, and the government, they got smart cookies working in there. They called it a savings account because they wanted every single person to run to their bank and get a tax-free savings account that paid them like 1% interest or like 1.5% interest, and earn a few dollars tax-free and go woohoo. But here's the dirty little secret, is that it can be an investment account. So you can invest, not anything, but a good number of things into
almost anything.
Pretty much almost anything. Probably not art, but there is pretty much anything that you can put into a TFSA. And it is
same as the RSPs, right? Like it's the same
as RSPs.
Same option.
The beauty of the TFSA, whatever you earn within that account is 100% tax-free. No matter when you take it out, no matter what you do with it, it is 100% tax-free. Tax-free, not tax-deferred, tax-free. And that is a magical, magical thing. So if you are wanting to start retiring, start thinking about retirement or those long-term savings accounts, the tax-free savings account should be your highest risk investment, and it should be the last money you touch in an emergency. So you want to make sure that you are utilizing that ability to earn tax-free income, and you want to take the biggest risks for you. I'm not saying you should take huge risks if that's not up your, your jam, but it should be the biggest risk that you can handle, and then it'll be the last money that you touch, because that's going to give you the opportunity to make the most money in that tax-free shelter, which is just so amazing. You can like double or triple your money and the government can't touch it, which is like, I don't know about you, but it's magical. It's
like
magical.
Yeah.
So that is what I would suggest doing. And if you're the kind of person that has those maxed out TFSAs, I say wonderful, fabulous for you. Then you can maybe start looking at some other products like RSPs, or maybe even a non-registered account if that's going to be a better strategy for you. But if that's the situation that you're in, talk to a professional. They would be more than happy to look at what's happening in your life, in your accounts, and see what's going to get you the most bang for your buck.
That's awesome. So what about those people then who don't have that monthly cash flow that's sort of freed up? So people who are still really heavily in debt, or maybe they have some job uncertainty, so they're not quite sure what's going to happen in the next 3 months or 4 months or 5 months or 6 months.
I would say stash as much cash as you possibly can. Like almost, I don't want to use the word hoard, but do what you can to squirrel away as much as you can, because you know what, guys, something is coming. Whether it is another round of quarantine or something completely out of left field, because let's face it, 2020 is a spectacular dumpster fire. Yep. And there is something else coming. I can almost guarantee it.
More murder hornets?
Or maybe there's some more murder hornets
zombie
coming.
cicadas. I heard on the news yesterday, the zombie cicadas. I had to
that sounds fun.
Yeah, I had to explain what that was to the children.
I'm not sure. I'm not even sure I know what that is, and I don't even want to know. Don't explain it to me.
Look it up. They're basically just bugs that that emerge every 17 years in North America. It's lovely. Yeah. So hoarding cash. Year. So it's actually funny because I've actually used that term, like I'm hoarding cash, and I like stash the cash. That sounds a lot better. It sounds a lot less desperate, let's say. But I'm definitely, as a small business owner, for personal finance reasons, I think it's a really great idea to stash the cash, to have that. I mean, it's always good to have an emergency fund. It's always good to have access to that 3 to 6 months of living expenses. But especially now we've seen what can happen. I think it is a really great idea to have cash on hand, and not just the access to a line of credit, which I know a lot of people rely on in the past. But with us, school shut down, and I'm stuck at home with the kids, stuck at home, blessedly, able to spend glorious quality time with my children. I'm just going to smile through this part right now. And if I can't work, then, I can't put things on a line of credit or a credit card if I don't know when I'm going to be making more money in order to pay it off. So it's like using up all the cash and tightening the belt so that we have fewer expenses. So if we're looking at another round of that, like you said, if it's not a quarantine, if it's not school shutting down, it's going to be something else. I don't know, actual zombies, an actual zombie apocalypse, who knows? And having cash, like actual physical cash in that case may be a good strategy. Growing veggies in the garden is something that we also started because we want to be able to just go out and grab some carrots or some lettuce, so I don't have to send somebody in the house to the grocery store, because that takes a long time these days.
Yeah. Oh, I am staring down the barrel of heading to the grocery store as soon as we're finished here. So
okay,
that's going to be super fun. Thanks.
Mask it up.
I would say the other thing to consider is if you are in a position where job loss is a potential, or you are still facing it, then I would say start doing the research or start getting a side hustle off the ground now. Do the work while you still have some options, and create an alternate income source for yourself. Is it going to be easy? Heck no. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of work, and it's going to give you a lot of gray hair and probably a few more wrinkles. But if you can create an alternate income source for yourself, then you're going to be setting yourself up to the point where you can weather another storm, rather than having to panic and then do something at the last minute that may be not nearly successful, or not nearly, as lucrative for you and your family in that panic mode. Because right now you've got a clear head on your shoulders, and you're going to be a lot more able to set these things up as an alternate income stream. And, at the end of the day, you can set it up, and if you don't end up needing it, you just shut it down and, close up shop, so to speak. But at least you've got yourself something, because it's always better than nothing.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Jen. And what about debt? So just really quickly, let's just touch on debt and what to do about that.
Oh my gosh. I would say at this particular moment in time, if somebody is like barely making ends meet and worrying about, future job loss or current job loss, it's just do your best to maintain your debts. Because right now we are in a crisis situation. If you're in a position where you can pay down balances, I see amazing. Mm-hmm. But if you are just in a place where you are literally keeping the roof over your head and the food on your table, then do your best to maintain your payments. Reach out to your creditors, talk to them, tell them what's happening in your life. And the worst thing that you can do is stick your head in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist, because that is going to lead to so many more headaches down the road of collection agencies and, having difficulty tracking down debts and just destroying your credit score. If you at least address the problem, talk to your creditors, do your best to maintain your minimum payments, you can scrape by until you can figure out a way to make it better. But just don't ignore it.
That's really good points there. We've also talked about not making things a next year problem. So, CERB is a really great example. People who are applying for the $2,000 a month from the Canadian government, and they're just spending everything. And of course, in some cases, like, it is absolutely crucial. Like you said, we're keeping roofs over people's heads and food on children's tables. But for those people who are just, collecting CERB and buying a new couch, and honestly, like, for real, like, this is legit, like what I've been hearing, it is taxable. the Canada Emergency Response Benefit is taxable income. So next April, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be having tax bills due. So I just want to encourage everyone to not make this a next year's problem. Like, address this now. Don't make it a next year's problem.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it better myself.
Cool. So thanks, Jen, for joining me. It's always wonderful having our resident money coach able to join in on these calls, which was supposed to be a live. And maybe we'll go live next time.
Fingers crossed. Technology will be with us.
Yay. Have a great rest of your afternoon in that beautiful, sunny, gorgeous, ginormous office there.
Thank you.
Talk later.
Bye.
Bye.